Welcome to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. Brought to you by Elite Consulting Partners, it's the only podcast offering unfiltered guidance and direct advice for all things concerning financial advisors, RIAs, and the practitioners in the wealth management business. Learn more and subscribe today at eliteconsultingpartners.com/podcast. And now, here's your host, Frank LaRosa.
Hey everybody, welcome to Advisor Talk. I am Frank LaRosa. I'm your host, and once again, I'm joined by the Executive Vice President of Sales at Elite Consulting Partners, Stacey Frank. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Happy to be back, as always.
Awesome. For those of you that are listening to us on a podcast, thank you very much. You should go check us out over on our YouTube channel, which is Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa, and be able to see us and see a little bit of the studio and our cool sign and all that good stuff. And so don't forget to follow me on Instagram, which is franklarosa.elite, or you can check us out on LinkedIn, which is Frank LaRosa, and obviously Stacey, you can check her out. She puts some great content out as well, so you should be following her as well. So we're just going to jump right into this thing, and we've had a couple of calls and conversations. Again, if you're new to the show, we typically really are gearing and designing our conversations around topics and discussions that we've been having with advisors this week or last week or just recently. And so one of the ones that has come up, and it's really an amalgamation of different, I don't know if that's the right word, but
that works.
A consolidation of a bunch of different reasons why we talk to an advisor and they are clearly unhappy at the firm that they're at. And they have any number of different excuses or rationales as to why they're not moving firms. And we thought maybe it'd be a great idea to just walk through what I think I find is the sort of the 6 most common reasons, right? And so, and really in no particular order, and I'll just read them out here and we'll just go through them. So the first one is timing. The second one is it's too much work. The third one is I'll lose clients. Fourth is I'll lose money. The fifth is I'm just too busy. And the sixth is, well, I've looked before. And so I want to just walk through those because we just deal with those all the time. And a lot of the clients that we've successfully moved and are very happy, we know that because over the number of years I've been doing this, I can count on one hand and not even use all my fingers because I have to use my fingers sometimes when I count. No, just kidding. But anyway, that number of clients that we've actually moved to a firm and then subsequently moved from that firm because they were unhappy. I can count on one hand how many times it's actually happened. And to us, that's like a brand promise. Like through our process, we're going to help you go through this process, through this transition. You just have to trust us and let us take you through it, and we'll get you to the other side. And address a lot of these issues.
Yeah, and I just want to add that we've even gotten to a point where an advisor will say, I'm not really looking, I'm curious, I'm really happy where I am. And we get so far as to have the initial conversation with our firm partners and even tell the business development folks from the firms, the advisor will say, I'm just doing some due diligence, I'm not really looking. And then sort of the momentum keeps going, and then the due diligence and the level of excitement, especially if it's moving towards independence. And somehow from that first conversation where I'm not really looking is, what can we do next? Yeah, right. It happens all the time.
How fast can I leave?
All the time.
Right. So the first one that we talk about, which we actually were talking about an advisor team today, was timing. The timing isn't right. And that could very well be a very good reason that you can't move right now. But what we typically see when we work with our clients and through our process that we go through, it could be anywhere between, to do it the right way, it could be anywhere between 6 months to a year before you find we call it like when you're adopting animals, right? Your forever home, right?
Adopting cats.
Yeah, like
is that
cats.
What you mean?
Yeah, I don't want to say cats, but your forever home, right? Again, our goal here, candidly, unlike a lot of sales recruiting firms that you might get calls from, our goal is to help you move to your firm and then never want to move again.
Right, and we appreciate that advisors need to be mindful, that they need to have some thinking time about I call it marinating in the information. That is critical. And with our guidance, and why you work with someone like us or another, consulting firm, is because we give you that space to be able to do that, but with knowledge. So we know, and that's why this process really takes so long, because the last thing we want to do is be in a fire drill situation. So taking the long time and making it the long game is actually preferred. It's better for all.
Right. And I think they use this term in the military. I don't know if it's the SEALs but in general in the military. Slow is fast, right? Slow is fast. And what we mean by that is, it might take you a year to go through this process. And so we work backwards. If you say, well, our contract isn't due until I can't move until January of 2026, right? We're in the end of 24. You can't move till the end of 2026. That's okay, because it might take us 6 months to find the right firm for you when you go through all of the conversations and the meetings and the tech demos and home office visits and deal negotiations and all the things that we take you through during discovery and due diligence. And then you can still have a window of 90 days or 180 days or more between your decision and your transition date. And that gives you time to prepare. By understanding what your target date is, you can work backwards and build that into your calendar. And then you also know in your mind where you're headed, so that when you're getting referrals or you're putting client assets into new investments, you're more mindful about where they're going, and candidly, are those assets portable? Because I've seen too many people where they're not thinking far enough ahead, and they, for one reason or another, put a large asset, make a large asset trade into some type of alternative or structured note or something that you then can't move, and so it keeps you there. So when we hear like timing isn't right, we just work through that with people. One point I worked with a large W-2 firm, and it wasn't timing was right because we bought out this other practice, and we still owed a note back to the firm, and they wanted to wait like a year. Well, we went through the math, which is sort of one of our points, and we'll get to it, but we went through the math, and I showed them, because they were going to go independent, and I was able to show them through the economics the cost of waiting. They would have lost money. I'm trying to say it the right way, right? The amount of money that they would have made if they moved and went independent, right, was more than the money that they were trying to save by waiting a year. Right. So basically, it would have cost them. I'll just use simple math, right? It was like a $900,000 note, and if they waited, part of it was going to roll off, and if they just waited, it would have cost them like $1.1 million. Because the economic difference, it was a pretty substantial size team. So it actually sped up the transition process. So instead of moving in a year and a half, they moved like in 6 months.
Right. I think sometimes advisors have the misconception that once you start the conversation, like you have to move within a certain period of time, and quite the contrary. We need to make sure that your due diligence is done thoroughly, accurately. Knowledge is power, so that the advisor can choose the right timing for them, not because we're pushing them, but because it's the right, that timing evolves, really.
Yeah, and look, a lot of times we get questions about like, what's the difference between you and everybody else, right? And that's the difference between a consultant and a recruiter, sales recruiter. They're just going to call you and they want you to move right away. As a consultant, we're looking to work with you for a long time and build that long-term relationship. And so it's going to be based on what's the right timing for you, and we'll help you work through that. So number two, and you sort of were alluding to the amount of work, it just takes too much work, Frank. I don't want to do it. Yeah, I hate my firm, but it's just too much work. And the reality is, and a lot of times this person has experience because they did it before, right? Which is much different than maybe the last time they did it. And when you try to do it on your own, that's generally what I hear, right, from people that did it on their own. It's too much work, and it is, because you're trying to field dozens of phone calls from different people. You're on technology demos by yourself. You're taking notes. Everybody's calling you every other day. There's no systemization to anything that's going on, and it's a little bit of a drain on your mental energy, right? And so where we come in, and I always say we act like just tells you our backgrounds, like we act like a quarterback, and you're like more like you act like a therapist or a psychologist.
Time in the chair.
Right, time in the chair. We come in and systematize the whole process for you, right? We know all the firms. So when we go through due diligence with you and understand your business and your clients, which is also a differentiator for us, is that many of the people at our organization that you might be working with have been in your shoes, right? I've been in this business for 30 years. I was a financial advisor. I was a director. So I know and have seen just about every type of practice and client there is. So when we go through a due diligence process with you, we can then take that information, and we know all the players, right? So we know all the firms that are out there that are going to be a fit for you and not a fit for you, versus you just fielding dozens of phone calls from firms you have no business talking to because they're not going to be good for you.
Right, and it's just like closing your eyes and throwing a dart at it. The landscape is vast, and we work with over whatever
150
number, 100
plus firms,
whatever firms. And I always tell advisors, I'm not telling you that to sound overly important or look how big we are, but so that we can truly take an initial subset of firms, as I like to say, a starting point to help you learn. Not to help you rule out the noise.
Right.
Filter out the noise.
We actually are, and just interesting comment I'm going to make here, I just realized we're actually turning down firms that want to work with us because we don't feel like they're adding any more value than the firms that we have, or we don't feel like they have their system or process dialed in, right? We've gotten worried, we've done some due diligence, and we don't feel confident in their transition team, right? So we're not gonna introduce a client to them if we don't feel comfortable that the transition is going to go smoothly. And so we're doing filters for some of these things based on your product. If you have if you need, I'll just use the simplest one. If you have international clients, we can save you a lot of time and you want to go independent. There's
only a few firms that actually do.
There's a narrow field, exactly. And so our job is to save you some time, which is why when you say it takes too much work, we help you through that. The other thing is most firms nowadays, the good firms at least, are all e-signature. So getting your documents prepped and moved is much easier than it was before. When I moved my own practice, I had to do it. Literally, I had to go to the office at like midnight and take all the files, and then go to my new office.
Send out FedExes.
Well, no, I had to go to my office on Saturday morning, the new office on Saturday morning. Met the manager there and photocopied everything, and then had to bring my files back to the other office right when I was done. And you have to do it at night, sort of cloak and dagger, and it's a lot of work. And nowadays, it's not really that bad. Even if you're leaving a non-protocol firm, right? It's actually a little bit less work up front because you can't take any of that stuff. You can't copy files. You can't do any of those things. And I'm just telling you, and you shouldn't. But it's easier. So there's ways to do things, and advisors that leave non-protocol firms and go to protocol firms or independents, whatever protocol firms, are all very successful. So because the systems, the transfer process is now only a day or two, many firms you don't even require a client statement. So it's very simple. So don't let this idea that it's too much work stop you. We actually got a really nice email from one of our clients that we just moved, thanking us. He sent it to me, but praising our consultants that he worked with because he had done this before by himself. And he said that working with our consultants made the process, it was literally like I could have if I was going to make up an email, that's an email I would have made up.
It was the ideal testimonial.
It was the ideal testimonial
Right.
because he said our process that our consultants took him through made it so much easier for him that he didn't lose focus on his business during the transition.
Right, and not to mention, too, compared to back in the day, that's what the transition teams are meant to do. That's all they do is focus on, because when assets transfer, then the firm wins, then the advisor wins, everybody wins.
Yeah.
So they are dialed in to make sure that transition is efficient, it's technologically secure, and the systems are in place. Because when the advisor succeeds, then everyone succeeds. So there's a vested interest.
Right. We have a firm right now that we work with. We do work with them. And we had a recent transition, and it didn't go that well, or it's not going as well as we would hope, right? And so we're having conversations with them about what we think they should do to improve their onboarding, right? We don't have anything to do with that. We're not selling them anything. What we are telling them is we're not going to make any more introductions to the firm until they fix it, which basically means hiring different people, because it's really a people issue than anything else, right? So, but you don't know those things if you're going through this process by yourself, and these firms aren't going to tell you that stuff, and so that's where we come in. So anyway, so number 3 is I'm going to lose clients. And the fact of the matter is that's simply, for the most part, not true. The majority of advisors that move firms nowadays are moving north of 95% of their clients, and they're doing it in, I'll just say conservatively, less than 90 days. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by conservatively, a lot of our clients are moving the majority of their the bulk of their clients in less than 30 days, right? Because, again, preparation is important. A good firm with a good transition team dials you in. And again, the ACAT process is fast, and they have a team that's entering your account numbers. They're doing that stuff for you. A lot of times we work with the firm, and part of our negotiation with them is basically a head count for your transition team. How many people are they going to allocate to you and your team to, if you're not looking at us on YouTube channel making images like typing, right? How many people are they going to give that are putting information into the system for you and your team, so you can just be on the phone with your clients and get back to business as soon as possible? And which is essentially the fourth one. I'm going to lose too much money, right? But the client one, I think that you'll find out. This is a great opportunity, and you can maybe add some light on this. This is a great opportunity for you to reassess the clients that you have, right? So,
right. Well, that's one of the questions that we ask, and we did a podcast on this previously, so we're not going to rehash it too much. But it's really about what is the strength of the relationship that you have with your clients. And most advisors, I would say 90% of advisors are great advisors.
Right.
They have multi-generational relationships. They've really taken care of their clients over the years and good performing portfolios, whatever. So most advisors will say, well, yeah, I mean, I've been their advisor for years. So when the fear of attrition comes up, or I'm going to lose clients, so I'm going to lose money, we just go through this exercise of, well, tell me about your relationship with your clients. And if there's some that you think might not come with you, let's start planning, setting meetings,
right.
Sending out birthday cards or whatever it
Showing
is,
them the love.
Correspondence. Right. So that stuff would be done ahead of time.
Right.
So that would reduce even more the attrition.
But the truth is, and the reason why it's 95%, and there are some stats with certain firms, and I can't speak to all the firms, but some firms that we work with, where they have stats that show that the average advisor after 6 months at the firm has 106% of, I'll say, stated client assets. The reason that's the case is because if you're doing it the right way and you're creating the right script for your clients, you're going to gain more assets from those clients and or referrals from those clients. They're going to bring them in, right? So you might be leaving, let's say you're leaving Morgan Stanley and you're going independent. I'm just picking just a scenario. I'm not bashing Morgan Stanley or anything like that. But that client has always had a Merrill Lynch account. And for whatever reason, the time wasn't right to talk about it. Now is a great time to have that conversation, because your client is filling out forms for you, and it would be very easy to say, listen, I know you've had that account. Now might be a really good time to think about consolidation and really making it easy for you, for us, so we can pull everything together. A lot of times, not always, but a lot of times clients will do something like that because in their mind they're already making this change, and so they're in a change mindset. There's a great time to bring that conversation up. Otherwise, when you're not, you may not even be talking to that client all that often. We had one client that was concerned that he hadn't talked to some of his clients for like 3 years, right? Which is kind of a problem. Right.
Well, that's an outlier situation. I don't
Right,
think.
but there's a lot of times, I bet you there's a lot of people that haven't spoken to one of their clients in a year.
Yeah.
A year. Think about it, a year goes by fast.
Yeah. Oh my God, I haven't talked to that person.
Right. All of a sudden, you look up one day, and your last meeting with them was their annual review last year, and you look up, and it's we're in November already, and you haven't spoken to them all year long. And maybe nothing's wrong, but you just haven't spoken to them.
But I think this process gives advisors the opportunity to have a different level conversation with their clients. And oftentimes, and we've moved some advisors from litigious contract firms, banks, whatever, and just by having that conversation of how they want to service them better, they're making a change, so on and so forth, they gain credibility. Oh, I was wondering when you were going to leave that firm.
Right.
I hate that place.
Yeah.
So
I love the response.
You never know.
I love the response that we get a lot of times after. Usually it's about, I would say 90 days after, maybe within 6 months.
Sure.
They say, I should have done this sooner. Because they realize that a lot of their fears, these fears that we're talking about here, these 6 main fears, are really in the advisor's head. And so, anyway, so the fourth one, which is I'll lose money, right? Because it's tied to I'll lose clients. And the reality there is that might be the case for a short period of time, but you have to understand your economics. And the other component of it is you might be losing money just by staying where you are, right? So if I'm talking, and this is easier said if you're a W-2 advisor and you're at a 45% payout or 50, whatever, let's say you're at 45% payout, and you decide that, you're not going to go anywhere else or you're not going to go independent. And by making a decision to not go independent, you actually are losing money. Because every single month that you're staying at whatever firm, whatever W-2 firm it is, right, you're losing anywhere between 20 and 30 points on your revenue every single month that you stay there. So, and if you have some deferred comp, and that's one of the reasons why you're leaving, you might lose some of that deferred comp. But what's the break even? How long does it take you to make that up if you're making an additional $20, $30, $40, $50,000 a month more every single month? We worked with some advisors that were increasing their compensation by over 6 figures a month because of the size of their practice. And so don't think about like I'm going to lose money if I leave, because it's not exactly true. You have to go through the math, and we will run an in-depth pro forma for our clients on what it looks like, and we'll do a comparison between your current firm, what it is today, and the growth of it over 10 years, and what is your end result after 10 years. And then we'll compare that to making a move to a new firm with a reduced annual production, growing at a different pace, and then we compare them. And I'll tell you that most times the break even is sometimes on independent firms, it's 2-3 years. A lot of times on a W-2 firm, it's maybe 4 or 5 years, but you're getting a lot of money up front, so that's where you're getting compensated. Sometimes deferred comp's covered, sometimes it's not. But we hear this, I'm going to lose money.
Well, I think short term. So what would you say to an advisor that's kind of stuck in that short term mindset? I'm going to leave. I'm not going to have my clients. Some clients won't come with me right away. That is that sort of stuck in that short-sighted, short-term mentality of I'm going to lose money. So what
I would say is, maybe in the first few months, first year, your revenue might go down, but if you're at a better firm and you can grow that, you can grow your practice at a much faster rate over 3, 4, 5 years, you're going to be ahead of the game. And then you're ahead of the game for the rest of your career. So you have to sort of move away from that short-term thinking and understand what's the long game in your practice. What is the long game? Now, listen, if you're 3 years away from retirement, I'm not suggesting that you move firms. You might want to think about starting to sell your firm, but I'm talking about the average producer that's going to be in the business for the next 15 or 20 years. So the fifth one is I'm too busy. And this one is really interesting. And you were just talking about this recently with a client. And my philosophy is good advisors are always busy.
Right. And it's like making any milestone decision in your life. And that's what we always equate it to. Buying a house, having children, getting married, buying a shore home, whatever it is. there's never going to be, and that's what I tell advisors all the time, the bad news is that there will never 100% be an ideal time to move. So again, that your vision, the reason that's drawing you to make a change, that has to be at the forefront.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
we've had it where, they're too busy because they're bringing clients on board. Which
That'll never stop.
Well, that's the point.
Right.
Like, that was my point. Like, okay, so if you're going to, I had one conversation. I said, well, you're a good advisor, right? He said, of course I'm a good advisor. I said, you have a pretty good marketing plan? He says, well, of course I have a good marketing plan. So when is there not going to be a time where you're bringing clients in? He's like, never. I'm like, so you're going to stay at a firm that you don't like because you're good at your job. Like, so the firm is getting the benefit of being a shit firm because you're a good advisor. He's like, yeah, okay, I see your point. And so there's that old expression, right? If you want to get anything done, give it to a busy person.
Right.
Right? And that's true.
Right.
So, don't let the fact that you're too busy slow you down from going through this process if you're unhappy with the firm that you're at. We can help you navigate some of the workload of going through that process so you don't necessarily have to take your eyes off of your practice and off of marketing and growing. We become the quarterback of this process for you, right, and take some of the busy work.
Right, all the legwork, all the thought processes. Thought processes.
That was a tongue twister.
You have to go through. We help simplify all of those things and take notes and keep it straight and help you differentiate. All that guesswork is taken out of the process from day one.
Yeah. Look, and what I tell people all the time is, if you're bringing clients on board and you're unhappy with the firm, let's go through this process at a quick pace so that you can come to a decision, good or bad, not really good or bad, stay or go or stay, quickly, because as you're bringing in new clients and prospects, and you don't want to necessarily be about to make a change, and then all of a sudden you get a referral from somebody. Now you have to decide, do we wait to onboard that client now, or do we wait till we move? So we try to bring people through this process so that you understand the direction that you're going, and we can help you there. Yeah. And then the last one, which is, I think, Stacey's favorite. I've looked before, or I talk to people like you all the time. And I'm going to let Stacey take this one because she's got a solid answer on this one. Yeah,
well, look, there's a lot of sales recruiters. There's a lot of calling going on within the industry. And quite likely, you have advisors received calls from sales recruiters before, right? But because of the much more consultative, much more holistic approach, just like how you, the advisor, works with your clients, this is not all of those sales recruiter calls. And we go through a much deeper dive into what your practice looks like, your staff, what's the vision you have for your business today, tomorrow, where does your family come into play here? Like all of that stuff. And if you looked, 10 years ago, the landscape is so different. The consolidation of the firms, the number of firms, the deals of the firms, the culture of the firms, technology, all of those things have changed. And quite frankly, advisors don't have the time to keep up with all of those things. Like maybe you did years ago when your practice was half the size.
Right.
So.
Yeah, well, it's like the email I got, and the advisor that responded said he had done it in the past by himself, but this time, given all the things going on in his life and everything, he just thought it was time to use a consultant, and so he came to us. But our process, which is, we never really talk about it too much here, but it's called the Elite Next Level process, which is trademarked, by the way, really was born out of my experience, my 30 years of experience in financial services, being in the seat. And so there's a lot of people that are in our space that have never been in our space, let alone even set foot in a brokerage office, right? So we created this process to be akin to how you work with your clients, where you're going to go through and understand what they're looking for, what their needs are, their goals and objectives long term, and then you're going to go and look at the field, and you're going to go do some of your own due diligence behind the scenes, and then you're going to look at the economics. You're going to put together a portfolio. Then you're going to go through the planning. We do the same type of thing when you go through our next level process. It's on our website. We'll put a link in the bottom. You can go check it out. But we just want you to understand that we've done all this stuff. We're the largest third-party recruiting and consulting firm in the space. We move hundreds of advisors every single year who move billions and billions of dollars of client assets. There isn't a situation that we have not dealt with.
Right,
at least not yet that we don't know of.
Well, we always learn something new every day, but we hold true to our core value of being, commitment to learning, being a good student of the game constantly. We spend an exorbitant. How much time do we spend learning? Not just go to this firm, go to that firm, but really looking under the hood of each of these firms, the how and the why an advisor should affiliate, like an excessive amount of time.
Yeah, well, look, there's people that follow me. They follow my Instagram. Well, I guess they put it on LinkedIn too, and they see I go to these firms and we get on planes and we go meet these firms and we kick the tires and see them in person, because that's a separator, right? That helps. When I say it's a separator, not like me versus the competition, but it's a separator in terms of getting us comfortable with the firms that we're considering introducing our clients to. We take this process very seriously.
Right. It's very intentional. I like to use that word. Like, we are very intentional. If we make a suggestion about these 2 to 4 firms that we think would be a great starting point, there's a very specific reason. Right. It's not just throwing stuff against the wall to make sure it works, see if it sticks.
Right. And so that's a great point.
Yeah.
Not that it's not one of the 6 reasons, but one of the things that you should understand with our process, we're going to introduce you to, anywhere between 3 and 5 firms at the beginning, and probably as much as 8 or 9 firms or 10 firms when you're done through this process, because as we learn things about you as a client and you learn about yourself, we might change direction. We might bring a new firm in that we didn't think about because you didn't say something during our due diligence, because you didn't even know. Like, you didn't even know what was inside of you with what you were really looking for, which is why Stacey does such a great job, because she's a master's degree in psychology, so she's able to peel the onion in my head.
I've already got you figured out.
Yeah, right. Of course you do. Of course you do. So, anyway, listen, we're here to tell you that if you're stuck at a firm that you're unhappy with, for any of these 6 reasons, don't be. We can help you through this process. We can get you through to the other side and be one of those clients that calls us back and says, dude, I should have done this sooner.
Yeah, and I don't think in the years I've been here, however a number of years, like, no one ever goes backwards. Just a very minuscule percentage of advisors that, go back the other direction or go back to their firm.
Swimming upstream, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Just doesn't happen.
1099 to W-2. Usually it's for a check or something like that, which is neither here nor there, right? I think every firm is right for certain types of advisors. So, But our point is, we'll leave you with this. You don't have to remain in the position that you're in, stuck at the firm that you're stuck at, because you feel, any number of these reasons why it makes it not a good time for you to make a move. We can help you through those things. Honestly, we can help you through those things, and then over time help educate you so that when you are ready to make that move, which is really what we're all about, it's educating you during this process so you have all of the information. There's sometimes where we might introduce a firm where we know it's on the outskirts of maybe what you're thinking about, but it's designed to help you understand why maybe the firm that we introduced at the beginning was the right firm, right? It's going to sort of solidify the rationale as to why firm A is the right firm for you, because now you've seen 4 or 5 other options and have learned what you don't want.
Right.
Right. So
I'm going to throw some psychology in there too.
Go.
Look, it's easy to procrastinate. The path of least resistance, being complacent, being the proverbial happy where you are, that's easy. But if we have a conversation with you and we sense some level of discontent or frustration, we know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And there's no reason to procrastinate on the vision you have for your business long term. Why wait? Life is short.
Listen, we're trying to provide a service to everybody. Yes, we get paid if you move. No question about that, right? But you're not going to make the decision to move if we don't find you a better option, right? We're not going to get paid if you move, if you don't move. So we have to do our job, and we have to really be good listeners and understand. And a good listener means not just about what you're saying, it's about what you're not saying that we are listening to.
Yeah, reading between the lines.
Right.
Understanding what you really mean. And sometimes advisors will say things and it's intended for one meaning, but we've had so many conversations that we see it in a different way.
Right.
So that whole definition process comes through.
Right. So anyway, if you want to go through this process with us and you're interested in having a conversation, obviously the first person you can call is Stacey. What's your phone number?
856-816-6322 or Stacey at eliteconsultingpartners.com. Don't forget the
E. I know how to spell your name.
Or Frank. Someone here didn't.
Yeah.
Anyway, or how to contact you.
You can shoot me an email at frank at Elite Consulting Partners, or you can shoot me a DM on my Instagram account, which is franklarosa.elite. You can shoot me a DM on my LinkedIn account as well. And if you're looking for more in-depth and behind-the-scenes stuff, you can also go to my Instagram account and subscribe to our subscription channel, where we're going to really talk about things behind the scenes and group calls and really talk about, help consult with you on deals that maybe we're not involved with, that we're happy to just give some advice to you on. So we're super excited. And if we don't hear from you, we'll have a great conversation. Yep. Happy Thanksgiving. We're approaching Thanksgiving here. So, and you got a couple weeks left of the year. So nose to the grindstone and just keep working, and know that if you want to work with us and you want to transition, we have your back.
Yep. We appreciate you listening.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. If you're looking for more advice or solutions on any topics in the financial services industry, or you just want to subscribe to our podcast, head on over to eliteconsultingpartners.com/podcasts.